sat at the small, uncomfortable kitchen table, holding the thick, creamy envelope in my hands. Inside was the most important letter of my entire life, my college acceptance from Brighton University, the very best school for architecture studies. The happiness I felt was like a wave of pure, dazzling sunshine washing over me. But before I could even properly celebrate, my mother, Nadine Carter, walked in with a cold, severe look on her face and dropped a huge, terrible bomb on the table. "Sweetheart, we desperately need to talk about your college fund," she began, her voice strained and avoiding my gaze. "We had to use it for a more urgent matter." Her words immediately froze the excited smile right off my face. Standing next to her was her new husband, Dorian Hale, perfectly smooth, his posture too relaxed, wearing a sickeningly confident, fake sincere smile. "It's not truly lost, Isla," Dorian added, leaning in close, smelling of cheap cologne. "It's simply a strategic investment for the entire family, a grand new venture." I couldn't breathe properly, my chest felt tight. My voice came out as a broken whisper. "You used Dad's savings, the money he left just for my education." Nadine finally looked up, picking nervously at a thread on her expensive sweater. "We urgently needed it for our new future together, Isla. You are still young, you'll understand this adult decision later." The sharp sense of betrayal that flooded me was instant and overwhelming. I slammed the acceptance letter onto the table, stood up quickly, and silently vowed, in the very deepest part of my heart, that I would never, ever forgive either of them for this terrible, selfish crime against my future. My name is Isla Bishop, and the cruel, public moment my own mother looked me in the eye and confessed that she had knowingly stolen my college fund. That was the exact, final day I completely stopped believing in the sacred idea of family bonds. I was exactly 20 years old, and my whole carefully planned world had just crashed down around me. My father, who had been an honorable and kind man, had died suddenly when I was younger. He was a man of his word, and every single dollar in that dedicated fund was his solemn, written promise, a guarantee that I, his only daughter, would always have the powerful choice of a good education and a brilliant, secure future. Nadine had struggled financially as a single mother for years until she quickly met Dorian. He was a smooth-talking, manipulative man, an expert in wearing superficial charm like a shield, and he spoke constantly in complicated, unbelievable, and risky financial schemes. He convinced my mom that investing my entire, substantial college fund into his absurd-sounding, eco-luxury furniture business would make us all instantly rich and safe. Nadine, completely blinded by her sudden, intense love and wish for security, believed his every single manipulative word. The whole speed of their marriage and the entire deal felt rushed, unnatural, and way too perfect. I had always suspected something was seriously wrong, but I never imagined the depth of their cruel, shared lie until that day. My lifelong, burning dream of attending the prestigious architecture school at Brighton University died a quick, completely unfair death that very same night. The next morning, running only on a deep sense of anger and almost no sleep, I went straight to see my high school guidance counselor, still clinging desperately to a tiny, fragile hope that they could save me. "Is there honestly anything at all, I can still do? Are there any emergency scholarship programs or last-minute funds available?" I pleaded with them, fighting back the painful tears that threatened to fall. The kind counselor looked at my perfect grades and my acceptance letter with deep pity. "Isla, I am so truly sorry to tell you this. Can't your parents at least co-sign a private, high-interest loan for you? That might honestly be your only remaining choice now to attend this semester." I couldn't help it. I let out a bitter, ugly laugh that tasted like complete ashes and defeat in my mouth. "My parents didn't just abandon me and my financial needs," I told them, truthfully and coldly. "My parents actually worked together and financially stole every cent from me." Over the next painful few days, watching all my old classmates posting cheerful, excited photos online, pictures of their new dorm rooms, their orientation schedules, and their proud, supportive parents, broke my already fragile heart into countless pieces. The massive, cruel injustice of the situation felt unbearable. I walked back into my old house that final evening, preparing myself for the loudest, most painful, and absolutely final fight of my young life. I couldn't stay silent and let them win anymore. I slammed my fist hard onto the kitchen counter, demanding a clear, honest answer for their behavior. "Why, Mom? How could you consciously choose to do this to me? to Dad's most sacred memory, I cried out. Nadine immediately became extremely defensive, holding up her hands in a shielding gesture. It was necessary for the entire family's long-term future, Isla. You will eventually benefit greatly from Dorian's amazing, guaranteed success, too, she insisted loudly, her voice tight and trembling with complete denial. Dorian, who was always ready with a condescending, manipulative remark, stood stiffly behind her, his arms tightly crossed over his chest. Stop being so dramatic and ungrateful, young lady. We are actually giving you a huge, real-world head start in life, something better than a mere degree. I reached deep into my bag and violently slapped my perfect, gold-embossed college acceptance letter onto the cool kitchen counter, the paper making a harsh snapping sound that echoed. You didn't give me a head start, I screamed at the top of my lungs, finally releasing all the pain. You completely and totally ruined my entire future. Nadine, losing all control, yelled back, her face red with rage. Well, maybe you simply didn't actually deserve to go to college in the first place, Isla. That final, cruel, unforgivable sentence was the last, most painful thing I ever heard her say. I instantly turned around, walked straight out the front door, and never once looked back at them. I was left with no car, no college tuition, and absolutely no stable plan for the next day. With absolutely nowhere else to go immediately and unwilling to call my toxic mother for help, I desperately crashed on the small, slightly stained pull-out couch of my kind high school friend, Liam. His wonderful parents were generous enough to let me stay for a few weeks, but I knew I couldn't impose on them forever. I immediately started looking for any and all work I could find in the city. Within a single, brutal week, I was working 3 exhausting minimum wage part-time jobs simultaneously, scrubbing sticky restaurant floors early in the morning, serving loud, demanding customers at a busy diner all day long, and finally folding endless piles of clothes at a dry cleaner late into the night. Every single dollar I earned, I meticulously saved. My nights were filled with complete physical exhaustion, but I forced myself to keep sketching. I would furiously draw beautiful, complicated interior layouts on old, greasy diner napkins and the backs of dry cleaner receipt papers. My promise to myself, the one quiet thing that kept my spirit alive, was simple, clear, and unbreakable. They left me with absolutely nothing important, but I swear on my father's memory, I will make something magnificent and lasting from this complete rock bottom. Just as I was finally starting to find my rhythm, my phone buzzed with an ironic piece of terrible news that made me laugh darkly. Dorian's overhyped, eco-luxury furniture business, the entire thing completely funded by my stolen tuition money, had just officially filed for total and catastrophic bankruptcy. The shocking news of Dorian's complete financial failure gave me a strange, hollow sense of poetic justice, but it definitely didn't manage to give me back my hard-earned money. A few short hours later, my phone started ringing endlessly and aggressively. It was Nadine. When I finally answered the call, her voice was high-pitched, hysterical, and completely broken by panic. Isla, listen to me. We truly lost absolutely everything important. The business has failed totally. Our bank accounts are completely frozen by the IRS, and Dorian is talking constantly to expensive lawyers. Please, Isla, please come back home. We desperately need you to help us. I listened to her sobbing uncontrollably for a long minute, a terrible, cold emptiness spreading through my heart where love used to be. Then, I slowly and deliberately hit the decline button on my phone, ending the call immediately. You lost everything, Mom, I whispered to the silent apartment air around me, correcting her with a chilling, final calm. I, on the other hand, am just now genuinely getting started with my own life. I hung up the phone and looked around Liam's small, cramped living room. Liam also owned a tiny, local coffee shop where I occasionally picked up extra serving shifts. The entire shop looked tired, boring, and severely outdated. Suddenly, a brilliant, powerful idea sparked inside my head. I immediately walked over to the counter and made a generous offer to Liam. I would completely redecorate his entire cafe from top to bottom, using only cheap, thrifted furniture and minimal paint. And I would do it all entirely for free, just for the experience. I poured every single spare moment and spare dollar I had into renovating Liam's small cafe. I meticulously scoured every single thrift shop in the city for beautiful, forgotten furniture. I taught myself how to properly operate a heavy sanding machine from YouTube videos, and I spent countless late nights painting bright, complex, colorful murals directly onto the boring, white walls. I used all my untapped knowledge from my failed architecture dreams to make the space feel incredibly light, modern, and uniquely inviting. The complete change was absolutely stunning and immediate. Suddenly, customers started posting endless, loving photos of the cafe's new interior design on all their social media accounts. The cafe became completely packed with new customers every single day. A popular local blogger, someone with a large following in the city, posted a beautiful, professional photo of the custom seating area and added a caption that made my stomach completely flip with excitement. Whoever designed this incredibly cool, unique space seriously deserves a full-time job in the design industry. It was a small but undeniably powerful piece of public recognition. A few days later, Liam came over to my table, looking excited and completely amazed. Isla, someone very important, just called me. They saw the cafe online, and they are genuinely interested in meeting you right away about real, paying design work. The very next day, a tall, serious, but impeccably dressed businessman walked into the now buzzing cafe. His name was Eamon Vale. He didn't even bother to order a coffee. He just walked slowly and carefully around the entire room, taking in every single detail of the design. He turned to me, his eyes full of respect and curiosity. Isla, you really did all this impressive, complex work yourself, and with that impossibly tiny budget? He asked, clearly and genuinely impressed by my resourcefulness. I nervously explained to him how I had only used recycled materials and an enormous amount of imagination to achieve the look. Eamon didn't waste any time talking about my lack of a college degree. He talked only about my natural, powerful vision. He immediately offered me a small, entry-level freelance gig, redesigning the entire office lobby for one of his smaller, newer tech clients. I can't promise you a lot of money right now, Isla, because you're new, but I can absolutely promise you something much more valuable. High visibility for your best work, he said firmly. Visibility was the most important thing I needed right then. I spent the next few days working harder than I ever had in my life. When my very first official check arrived in the mail, it was tiny, maybe just enough to cover 2 weeks' rent, but it was earned entirely by my own talent, my own sweat, and my own effort. I didn't cash it right away. I carefully placed it in a small frame and hung it proudly on the wall of my friend Liam's living room. The freelance work was physically exhausting, but it was also incredibly fulfilling and meaningful. Then, my painful past unexpectedly showed up to haunt me. I was quietly wiping down sticky tables at the busy diner when I looked up and saw my mother, Nadine. She looked noticeably tired, much older, and extremely worried compared to the last time I saw her. Isla, you look absolutely drained and exhausted, she said immediately, her voice soft and full of fake caring concern. Please just come back home. That little couch at Liam's place isn't a long-term, stable solution. I firmly wiped a spill off the table and looked her straight in the eye, not moving. Mom, home isn't a place where people actively steal my future from me, I replied, my voice hard, flat, and even. Just then, I saw a familiar, dark luxury car slowly drive past the diner window and stop abruptly down the street. It was Dorian. He was wearing his usual expensive sunglasses, clearly pretending he hadn't seen me, but he was obviously there to make sure my mother successfully dragged me back home with her. He pulled over down the street, waiting silently in the shadows. As Nadine turned to walk toward his car, she muttered one final, cruel parting shot under her breath, loud enough for me to hear every word perfectly. Don't worry, Dorian. She's only got so much pride to burn through. She'll come crawling back to us when she gets desperate and hungry enough. My small, humble cafe design project continued to gain serious traction and professional interest. The striking photos of the bright, unique space were constantly circulating in various influential interior design social media groups and blogs. Then, a small, independent online publication, focused specifically on local business successes, decided to write a full, detailed feature article about my unconventional life story. The headline, which made me proud and nervous all at once, read, From diner waitress to downtown designer, the rags to riches success story of Isla Bishop. The entire article detailed my difficult start, my lack of formal training, and my incredible use of cheap, recycled materials. It painted me accurately as the ultimate underdog success story. My story was getting out, even though the true, painful reason behind my rags status was cleverly omitted for professionalism. This public attention was the exact breakthrough I had been desperately working toward. Then, something happened that made me realize my mother and Dorian were still completely obsessed with my life. A malicious comment appeared anonymously at the very bottom of the article's comment section. It was short, nasty, and clearly written by someone who knew too much about my past. "She's lying," the comment read. "She definitely had a large trust fund. She's lying. She had plenty of financial help and family money to start her business." The anonymous, malicious comment was quickly flagged and deleted by the publication's moderators, but the psychological damage to my privacy was done. Nadine immediately called me, completely furious, hysterical, and full of frantic accusations. "Isla, how could you be so careless? Why would you air our dirty family laundry in the media and intentionally make us look like complete villains to the entire community?" she aggressively demanded, practically screaming into the phone. "Do you have any idea how badly this is damaging Dorian's already fragile business reputation right now?" I waited patiently, letting her finish her entire lengthy, angry rant before I calmly spoke a single word. My voice was quiet, emotionless, and ice-cold. "I didn't air anything publicly, Mom. You both did that the exact minute you consciously chose to use Dad's money to fund Dorian's ridiculously dumb business venture. You stole my future, and now, finally, you both have to live with the public truth of your terrible actions." I quickly hung up the phone before she could respond with any more manipulation. The very next day, a much bigger, devastating piece of news broke, and this story had absolutely nothing to do with me. A front-page story detailed that Dorian's completely failed business was now officially under formal investigation by the state authorities for serious tax fraud and mismanaging countless investor funds. I didn't have to lift a finger. Dorian was finally collapsing under the massive weight of his own relentless greed, and Nadine was panicking, watching her entire new dream life completely crumble overnight. Despite the massive legal and financial chaos surrounding my estranged family, my own professional career was moving forward rapidly and successfully. Eamon Vale called me with an enormous, game-changing opportunity, a complete, large-scale interior redesign project for a brand-new, upscale boutique hotel that was opening soon in the downtown area. "They saw your incredible design work for my tech office lobby, Isla, and they specifically asked for you by name," Eamon said, his voice brimming with excitement and confidence. I felt a sudden, sharp, familiar stab of fear and serious self-doubt. "Eamon, I truly can't handle this project. I still don't have an architecture degree. I'm simply not qualified to handle a project this huge and complicated." He laughed warmly, a genuinely reassuring sound that cut through my anxiety. "Stop talking like that right now, Isla. You already have the vision, the unique style, and the incredible grit that matters most. You are more than qualified for this huge job. Trust me completely." He was completely right. I immediately accepted the job. I poured every ounce of my architectural dreams and all my hard work into that boutique hotel, making sure every single detail was perfect, modern, and absolutely beautiful. The demanding client loved the final, finished look so much that they immediately offered me an ongoing, long-term contract to handle all the interior design for their entire portfolio of future properties across the state. The boutique hotel redesign job was an instant, resounding professional success. The interior design was elegant, modern, deeply unique, and instantly memorable. Then, something truly amazing and completely unexpected happened. A very popular and highly respected home design influencer, who commanded millions of loyal followers, visited the new hotel and completely fell in love with my innovative work. She posted a full, glowing, and detailed review, including dozens of beautiful, professional photos, and accurately tagged my small, professional Instagram handle in every single one of her posts. Overnight, my follower count absolutely exploded. I woke up the next morning to an extra 50,000 professional followers, all eager and excited to see what I would design and do next. My name was suddenly being mentioned constantly in every design forum and professional trending hashtag. The massive, undeniable professional validation felt incredible and well-deserved. Later that same day, I received a short, anonymous text message from someone who had clearly seen the viral post. It was short, simple, and just slightly chilling in its possessiveness. "That's my daughter." The message was completely unsigned, but I knew instantly and without doubt that it was Nadine. She was watching me, and she couldn't help but claim me now. A few days after the viral social media post, Nadine tried to call me again, but this time she left a long, tearful, and self-pitying voicemail on my phone. "Isla, I truly made a terrible, unforgivable mistake with your father's money. I see that clearly now. Dorian is not who I thought he was at all. Please, I beg you, can we just talk face to face? I want to explain everything that happened." I sat down quietly in my new office chair and listened to the entire miserable message, my face completely blank and emotionless. There was no anger left in me anymore, just a deep, powerful, and overwhelming feeling of complete emotional distance. When the message was finally over, I calmly and gently pressed the delete button on the phone, erasing her voice forever. I didn't owe her a single conversation or an explanation. I only owed myself the chance to succeed. And that was all that truly mattered now. Right after deleting the voicemail, my phone rang again, but this time it was an official number from a major local news station. They had seen the influencer's post, the local business feature, and my sudden viral fame. They wanted to do a full, detailed, in-depth feature segment on my unusual and highly successful rags to riches life story. They wanted to interview me live, on air, about my powerful, sudden rise to fame. The day of the live news segment felt completely unreal. I stood under the bright, extremely hot studio lights, feeling nervous but radiating a quiet, powerful confidence that I had earned through sheer, painful effort. The anchor was polite, professional, and clearly very impressed by my unconventional story. He asked the key, central question with a warm, genuine smile. "Isla, you've accomplished so much, so fast, without the typical degree or training. Tell our viewers honestly, how did you first start your amazing design business?" I looked directly into the camera lens, knowing exactly who was watching me at this very moment, sitting at home. I smiled slowly, evenly, and perfectly composed. "I started my business," I said, my voice coming out clear and incredibly strong, "by unexpectedly and painfully losing everything I thought I desperately needed to succeed in life." It was the absolute, complete truth, but it was vague and professional enough to protect my growing business reputation. Then, as my segment finished, the camera did a slow, silent, dramatic pan. In a small, dimly lit living room across town, Nadine and Dorian sat completely speechless on their worn, cheap couch. They were watching me, their daughter, on their small television screen, their faces utterly frozen and completely devoid of any emotion. The very next morning, before the shockwave of my live television interview had even faded, a massive, devastating headline broke across all the major local and national news platforms. "Local investor Dorian Hale accused of multi-million-dollar fraud." The front-page story detailed a long, comprehensive list of his illegal activities, including mismanaging countless investor funds, tax evasion, and money laundering. Dorian's terrible, official mugshot quickly spread across the internet and the local papers, making him a public disgrace. Nadine's short-lived, dreamlike new life instantly crumbled into complete dust overnight, taking her superficial happiness and security with it. The shame was total, public, and permanent. I read the news reports with a strange, detached calm, feeling neither joy nor sadness. I just felt like this was the inevitable, natural end to a life built on pure greed and dishonesty. Later that afternoon, desperate reporters, looking for any angle, showed up at the boutique hotel I was redesigning, flashing huge cameras and aggressively asking the receptionist for a comment from Dorian Hale's successful stepdaughter. I firmly refused to speak to any of them, knowing that my quiet, professional silence was far more powerful than any quote I could possibly give them. The inevitable confrontation I had been expecting finally happened a few days later. I was leaving the dry cleaner where I still occasionally worked a shift to pay for art supplies when Nadine cornered me in the large, dark parking lot. She was sobbing hysterically, her expensive mascara running messily down her face. She looked desperate, broken, and utterly defeated. "Isla, you absolutely have to help me. Dorian completely ruined my life. The bank froze all our accounts." Please, I beg you, you're successful now. You're rich. Please help your poor mother, she pleaded aggressively, grabbing hard onto my arm. I gently but very firmly pulled my arm away from her frantic grip. I stayed completely calm and controlled, looking down at her emotional, broken state. Mom, I am not rich, not yet. I am only successful because I worked tirelessly for every single dollar I have. You consciously chose him over me when you decided to take that money. You made your choice years ago. Now you need to find a way to live with the difficult consequences of that choice, just like I had to find a way to live with the consequences of your terrible actions. I turned away from her, the heartbreaking sound of her collapsing into deep, broken tears following me as I walked away into the night, free at last. A week later, the main, detailed segment of my interview aired nationally across the entire country. My incredible story instantly went completely viral, trending aggressively across all social media platforms with the powerful, inspirational headline, "Young designer turns painful family betrayal into professional breakthrough." My phone buzzed constantly for days with hundreds of incredibly supportive messages from total strangers around the world. But one specific message stood out clearly from the rest, filling me with a deep, emotional sense of perfect poetic justice. It was an official email from a highly respected scholarship and foundation program dedicated to helping extremely talented students who faced massive, unfair financial hardships. They had watched my emotional interview, they believed my difficult story completely, and they were reaching out specifically to help me. The incredible foundation offered to completely sponsor my entire architecture degree at Brighton University, covering all my expensive tuition and all my basic living expenses, while also generously allowing me the time and freedom to continue running my already successful interior design business. The unexpected offer was a full, beautiful circle of redemption and true justice. I would finally earn the exact, powerful education that my mother and Dorian had so cruelly stolen from me 2 years earlier. I would get the valuable degree, but entirely on my own terms, earned through my own endless hard work and talent, not through their eventual pity or charity. I immediately and gratefully accepted the offer. It felt clean, right, and profoundly righteous. Later that evening, I received one final, short, unsigned text message from Nadine. It simply read, "I'm honestly very proud of you, Isla." It was the first honest, genuine thing she had said in years. I read the words, but I felt absolutely nothing in response. I simply did not reply to the message. A few short months later, I was invited back to speak at my old high school to give a highly motivational talk to the new graduating class of students. As I walked slowly down the familiar, crowded hallways, dressed professionally and looking confidently successful, the current students whispered excitedly, "That's her. That's Isla Bishop, the powerful one who made the national news story." The whispers were no longer about my early failure or my lack of money. They were now about my incredible success and my undeniable strength. It was an amazing, empowering feeling. After the talk concluded, I drove slowly by my old neighborhood. I slowed down my car as I passed my childhood home for the final time. The small yard looked overgrown, neglected, and there was a bright, humiliating realtor's sign hammered firmly into the lawn. The house was officially on the market, ready for sale. I stopped my car directly across the street and called the number listed on the realtor's sign, pretending convincingly that I was a genuinely interested potential buyer. The realtor, a friendly, overly gossipy woman, immediately started talking rapidly about the owners. "It's a great house, a real steal, but the funny thing is, the current owner went totally bankrupt recently, lost absolutely everything to some bad investment scheme. The bank is forcing the sale to recover their losses." I smiled faintly, looking straight at the faded front door of my childhood home. "Yeah," I said softly into the phone, my voice completely flat. "I know exactly who the former owner is." I thanked her politely and instantly hung up the phone. It was completely over for them. Later that same week, I made a quiet, private trip to my old high school's art department. I didn't want any public recognition or credit. I anonymously donated a massive, heavy box filled with the highest quality pencils, architecture tools, expensive drafting paper, and expensive art supplies. I signed the simple donation card simply, "From AB Never, ever stop sketching your dreams." I took a quiet, needed moment to reflect deeply on every single thing that had happened in the past 2 years. Achieving professional success didn't magically erase the deep, persistent pain of the initial betrayal, but the entire difficult journey had fundamentally and powerfully changed who I was as a person. The struggle had made me tougher, more resilient, and much, much smarter about people. I started to dedicate time to personally mentoring a young woman I met through the foundation who was facing a very similar family financial betrayal. I openly shared my complete story with her, not as a victim who was hurt, but as a strong survivor who had won. After hearing the entire, difficult journey, the girl looked up at me, her eyes bright and filled with determination. "Isla," she said firmly, "I genuinely want to be exactly like you when I grow up." I smiled, a warm, genuine, proud smile spreading across my face. "Then you have to start working today," I gently told her. "Start sketching your wildest dreams, start saving every dollar you earn, and never, ever let anyone in the world take your powerful drive away from you again." I received one final, deeply personal piece of communication from my mother. It arrived randomly in the mail, a simple, nondescript white envelope with a shaky, handwritten address. I opened it very carefully. Inside, Nadine had written a long, emotional, and honest letter. It wasn't full of pathetic apologies or desperate pleas for money this time. It was a true, heartbreaking confession. "You were always so much stronger and so much smarter than I ever was, Isla. I see that difficult truth clearly now. I let my own fear and crushing loneliness ruin every single good thing I had, including you. I pray that you can somehow find true peace in your amazing success." I read the entire letter from beginning to end, and I was genuinely surprised to find absolutely no lingering anger or tears. Just a quiet, deep, powerful sense of final peace. The entire terrible, painful chapter was finally and completely closed. I folded the letter neatly and carefully placed it into the very bottom of my desk drawer, right under my original framed first check from Eamon Vale. The past was now simply a powerful, quiet reminder, not an emotional burden. 2 years later, I officially graduated from Brighton University with the highest honors in architecture, successfully completing the degree they tried to stop me from getting. I immediately used the substantial funds from my first major design contract to fund the grand opening of my very own beautiful interior design studio in the busiest part of downtown. Reporters and journalists started calling me the city's self-made visionary and the powerful new face of modern, sustainable design. The walls of my sleek, beautiful studio were proudly lined with my original sketches, the very same layouts I had once desperately drawn on old, greasy diner napkins and the backs of dry cleaner receipts. My professional life was finally perfect. Then, I got a completely unexpected phone call that felt like the entire universe giving me one last, beautiful gift of poetic justice. A new, major client walked right into my office. It was the national news station, the very one that had first broadcast my early success story, and they wanted me to completely redesign their entire on-air studio set, giving me full creative control. The final, powerful scene took place on the fully renovated, gleaming new studio set. I stood proudly under the bright, perfect studio lights, every single detail designed, chosen, and executed meticulously by my own company, Isla Bishop Interiors. The anchor smiled genuinely at me, ready for the final, concluding interview question. "Isla, looking out at this beautiful, modern space you created, what is the single biggest, most important lesson you took away from your incredible, difficult journey to success?" I looked past the camera, past the intense lights, and straight out to the millions of people watching, including one specific woman sitting alone in a small, quiet apartment. Dorian was certainly gone, likely serving time in jail, and Nadine was watching me, her eyes filled with silent, heavy regret. "Success isn't simply about cruel revenge," I said, my voice strong, steady, and full of grace. "It's fundamentally about proving your inner value and powerful worth to yourself. But," I added, allowing a genuine, confident, triumphant smile to finally break through, "it sure feels incredibly good to definitively prove everyone else wrong about you." The camera did a dramatic, slow zoom in as the news program concluded, and my name flashed across the chyron for everyone in the country to see. Sparkle's Isla Bishop, Designer of the Year.